Mission 68 broadcast where we serve justice, love mercy.
And walk humbly.
Yes, we do. How is everyone doing today? I'm Brady Lape, joined today by my spooky co-host, Jackson Parnell. Say hi, Jack. Or no, say boo. Say
Boo,
boo,
everybody.
Jackson. Boo. Happy Halloween, everybody. Well, for us, on the day we're recording this, it is October 31st, even though it's going to be airing tomorrow, Friday, November 1st. So we got a little spooky for you. However, we have some scarier things than ghosts and ghouls and anything that you can come up with Halloween, and it's the stories that we cover every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we got some very scary political and environmental stories to share today. But first, we're of course going to be going over our Micah news, which we always do first, starting off this time first with our air quality. So this is our particulate 2.5 matter. It is at a 19 right now, and 0 to 50, air quality is considered A-OK. Remember, this Sunday, we have a community giveaway at the Village Coffee House. Don't forget about it. Make sure that you show up a little bit earlier, if you can, to make sure that you get any of the goodies and that we don't run out. I don't think we will, but you never know. I think the time for that is 2 to 4 p.m. And then we're going on the 7th, November 7th, which is a Thursday, our community meeting at the Calcasieu Public Library. That's going to be at 6 p.m. Yeah, I'm right, at 6 p.m. All right. So that's all for the Micah news. So today we're going to go ahead and move on to our first story. And since Election Day is coming up soon, we want everyone to be informed about the candidates that they're voting for, neither of which Micah 6.8 endorses because we cannot. But we will be presenting you as factual as information as we can about both candidates, starting off with an article from The Hill about oil bigwigs open wallets for Trump after billion-dollar requests. So we're going to play a clip directly from the Hill article first, and then maybe do a little talking about it afterwards. So here you guys go.
There was this meeting earlier this year where Trump met with oil industry executives and asked them to raise $1 billion for his campaign, saying that it would more than pay off in tax cuts and deregulation if he were to get in office. It seems like big oil took the cue. What are we learning from some reporting numbers in campaign spending?
Yeah, really good reporting in the Hill today that the $1 billion was not, that is a huge number, that was not quite there, but that some, $25,000, over $600,000, around $50,000, those were all huge donations from some of these big oil executives. And when Trump made this $1 billion comment, there was, of course, the question over, is this a quid pro quo situation? Like, give me this money and I can do great things for the oil industry. The Trump campaign at the time suggested that it's not that kind of a setup, but the oil industry did come through with these really significant donations. So we'll see if that actually, if he is elected, if that does, influence him.
All right. So yeah, pretty much exactly what they were saying there. Trump was pretty much in a room with a bunch of oil giants who owned multi-billion-dollar companies, and essentially was like, yo, if I get to be president, which is what you want, you should donate to me because I am going to end up making it, worth your while because I'll be giving you tax cuts. And
he called it, quote, a deal.
A deal, yeah. So, of course, any and all opinions expressed by me and Jackson are opinions held by us individually and not of Micah 6.8 Mission, which does not endorse either candidate. But I don't believe that if you're an environmentalist and you care about, the earth not melting, then it perhaps is not the best idea to be interested in a candidate who is taking essentially bribes.
Is openly, openly asking for a literal $1 billion from oil and gas industry moguls.
Yeah, I don't. So the oil companies is the people who are perpetuating climate change. So their interest is not going to be environmentally friendly. They are not environmentally green companies, and they seem like they really want Trump to win. So I would consider that, reflect on that on a maybe if you think I don't know if Trump would be the best environmental candidate, but we are going to move forward from that one, which is not anything surprising that big oil companies are paying the Republican Party. Uh, okay, now we're gonna do some Kamala. Just to keep it a little bit unbiased here. Try to go to both sides. So as you people know, and this is from the American Prospect. It's about Kamala's fracking position and specifically its relation to Pennsylvania, how much it is actually going to affect Pennsylvania's vote if they're going to be I mean, they are a swing state, but if fracking is actually an important issue there, which if you've been following the election, you'll know from both parties, they have both been treating it as though fracking is going to be this major determining factor in Pennsylvania, and it's the reason why Kamala went back on her original when was it in 2019 when she had originally
It was her 2019 bid, yeah.
yeah, originally in 2019 when Kamala Harris had come out and against fracking, she took it back. We've talked about this before, that it's essentially just so that they can have a better chance in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's just appeasement to Pennsylvania voters.
Yeah. So Kamala Harris is also not as environmental as we would like her to be either. But yeah, we should demand more from her. But regardless, it seems like, according to this article, fracking actually isn't as big of a deal in Pennsylvania as maybe some people would think. Those politicians would think. According to the article here, actually, it seems that from this, I think, the American Prospects, they did some door knocking, hundreds and thousands of doors across the state. And essentially what they found was that everyone in Pennsylvania did agree that fracking was going to be a big part of the economy there, as it always was, and it's going to continue to be a big part of the economy there even after Vice President Harris may be elected or Trump to be elected. However, it wasn't actually like a top issue of anyone that they spoke to. So nobody that is voting in Pennsylvania is like, no, we need to keep fracking. On the contrary, the majority of people from Pennsylvania actually, as one of their highest issues, cared about environmental issues, those related to climate change and global warming. And 42% of them actually support an entire ban on it, which is almost half of the state. 9 out of 10, yeah. A Ohio River Valley Institute in early October found that 9 in 10 Pennsylvanians support strict regulations on the industry. 42% support a total ban. So that just goes to show that also, Brady opinion, Democrats suck too, because why are we running to the right on climate issues? Why are we running that way? Whenever it is a better idea just to appeal to the correct position anyway, which is just to be green and an environmental advocate, which would get way more votes and uproar amongst people, the majority of Americans who care about climate change.
Besides all that stuff, kind of changing the subject a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a very interesting Pennsylvania. I mean, it's a very interesting sort of parallel to the situation we have in Louisiana, but I guess more of like a opposite rather than a parallel. What I mean is like the fracking in Pennsylvania is very economically important, like to the state's revenue, but a majority of the residents of the state don't really support it. While inversely in Louisiana, uh, most people consider the LNG industry to be very economically important to the state, when in reality it's not exactly.
Yeah,
But
it's
in
like the
both
opposite.
states, yeah, but in both states, regardless of the actual impact, these industries are being put to the forefront and talked about constantly over uh, more prescient issues. Like the needs of these industries come first before the actual constituencies that these politicians are supposed to be appealing to.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That why is this is being talked about a lot in all sorts of media, even local media here and in national media. Fracking has been a really big issue this election, but that's not really a majority of people's concerns and an issue that they should be concerned about voting for either of the candidates. Just like we have problems with like LNG and all the production here, the pollutants that we have here, fracking also comes with its health risks. Um, it says here in the article that the chances were higher there in the county that does the most fracking in Pennsylvania. They have a higher risk of developing lymphoma. The children do, specifically
Mm,
children. The children 5 miles away, and then 80. Well, let's see. Oh yeah, and then also other childhood cancer. It's not just lymphoma. Other childhood cancers as well. So it also is. Um, there's a lot of rare cancers that are more prevalent in Pennsylvania, specifically in the highest rate of fracking county, whose health issues are not really a big concern. Just like in Louisiana, ours is not a large concern either, and it seems to be that that topic of the industry itself is more of a concern.
yeah.
All right, but yeah, that's all for Kamala's Pennsylvania one on fracking. We're gonna end this one off today with a little fact sheet that I got from Oil Change International. It's called "Funding Failure: U.S. Carbon Capture and Fossil Hydrogen Subsidy Exposed." Essentially, what this one is about is that there's this thing called carbon capture. It's probably a lot more complicated than the way I'm about to explain it, but it's kind of just in the name. That it's essentially a attempt to get rid of some of the carbon from the atmosphere, um, in a attempt to combat climate change, of course, because carbon is the number one contributor to climate change. However, there are some major issues with that. First of all, is that it doesn't work like at all. That's the biggest issue. It's not effective. Actually, um, there's a 95% carbon capture target for the emissions that like hydrogen plants give out, but not a single project that has been like funded by this has actually had a capture rate above 80%. So they're not even doing the actual job that they're supposed to do, but they're also the recapturing of the carbon is actually driving them to use something. It's called blue hydrogen, which requires more gas to deliver the same amount of energy. So it ends up producing more carbon dioxide anyway. So it doesn't really do anything. Um, so all that to be said, it also is, well, of course, it's funded by taxpayer dollars, but it's funded by a lot more taxpayer dollars relative to any other country that is doing carbon capturing. With Norway being the second at six, these are in millions, so
So that was 6 billion.
6 billion would be from Norway, and then the next one up is the United States at that's 12 billion, and then with the tax credit estimate, it's an extra 1.3 billion. So about 1.5 billion dollars, or no,
Uh,
13 billion
yeah.
dollars. So we're spending about 13 billion dollars on something that isn't actually doing anything to fight climate change in the appropriate way. It really is a kind of a misdirection. Fortunately, there are some recommendations that Oil Change International gives us that I'm going to go through. So they recommend that we remove enhanced oil recovery from the list of permanent uses for the 45Q tax credit, which was enacted by Mike Quigley, I don't know how to say these, but you can search these up too. To end all fossil fuel subsidies, this is also another legislation. To end legacy subsidies to oil, gas, and coal production, essentially to follow some pretty green legislation, and to prioritize public finance for frontline communities and the countries that are enduring the greatest impacts of the climate crisis while contributing the least to it. Those are great recommendations. To stop doing all this stuff. All right. Okay, but I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. Unless there's anything else you have, Jackson.
I mean, really the only thing I wanted to add about the last article is it really just the biggest takeaway I feel is it truly does underline how all of these sort of attempts to mitigate the climate harm that these industries are doing is completely ineffective. It needs to be a structural shift
Oh, yeah.
to see any actual meaningful change in these horrific consequences of all this emission. It's profoundly frustrating to me to see countless numbers of experts constantly begging world governments to end the support and maintenance of these industries.